All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're talking about a set of materials that are quietly, almost invisibly, shaping our future. They're fueling everything from our greenest ambitions to our most advanced tech. This is the race for rare earths.
So think about it for a second. Electric cars, those massive wind turbines you see spinning on the horizon, the most sophisticated military hardware. On the surface, they seem like they're from completely different worlds, but there's an invisible thread that ties them all together. What is it?
Well, the answer is a group of 17 metallic elements called rare earths. Now, here's the funny thing. Despite the name, they aren't actually that rare geologically. The real challenge, and where the name comes from, is finding them in concentrations that are high enough to actually mine without going broke. And believe me, they are absolutely essential to how our world works today.
You can really think of them as the hidden engine of modernity. These elements are the strategic backbone of the whole green energy transition and our high-tech industries. Without them, the roadmap to a cleaner future and all that cool tech we love, well, it pretty much hits a brick wall.
And this total reliance on them, it points to a huge problem. The global supply chain for these metals is dangerously, seriously unbalanced. And this isn't just some abstract economic issue, it's a massive geopolitical risk that countries are now scrambling to deal with.
Just how unbalanced are we talking? Well, think about this number. Over 80%. That's the share of global rare earth production that's controlled by just one single country. Let's see what that actually looks like.
Okay, so this chart really lays it out there in stark terms. That huge slice of the pie, that's China's share of global production. And the rest of the entire world, we're all crammed into that tiny little sliver. This kind of concentration creates a massive vulnerability for pretty much every developed nation on Earth, because everyone needs these metals.
So faced with this reality, Western nations and their allies are, you could say, finally waking up and smelling the coffee. A real strategic response is starting to take shape, with a new wave of companies trying to rebalance the market and secure a more stable supply for the future. And at the very front of this charge are two major players. First up, in the US, you've got MP Materials. They run the huge Mountain Pass mine out in California and have some serious muscle behind them, including a partnership with General Motors for EV magnets and a lot of support from the US government. Then there's Australia's Lynas Rare Earths, which is the biggest producer outside of China, period. They've got contracts with the U.S. Department of Defense and are really focused on neodymium and praseodymium, or NdPr. Those two are the secret sauce for making the most powerful and efficient permanent magnets on the planet, magnets that are absolutely critical for high-performance EVs and wind turbine.
But it's not just about these two big players anymore. The field is definitely getting more crowded. We're seeing other companies jump into the race, and each one has a slightly different strategy for trying to carve out their own piece of this market.
Yeah, we're seeing a few interesting approaches pop up. You have established mining giants like Australia's Iluka Resources that are diversifying into the sector with government backing. Then there are the more focused pure-play companies like Rare Element Resources up in Wyoming that are hoping for similar government support. And then you get some really creative angles like the uranium miner Energy Fuels, which is using its existing facilities to process rare earths through a new partnership.
Okay, so we've been focused on the Western challengers. But what about the incumbents? It's impossible to have this conversation and ignore the established players. And this quote here frames it perfectly. If you're an investor who can stomach geopolitical risk, China's market leaders offer a whole different kind of opportunity.
Companies like China Rare Earth Holdings and Shanghai Resources, they're the titans of this industry. Their advantages are pretty clear. They are vertically integrated, which means they control the entire process, from digging the stuff out of the ground to making the final magnet. Plus, they have decades of infrastructure and huge cost advantages. They're the benchmark that everyone else is trying to catch up to.
So you can see this is a super dynamic, strategically critical sector. But, and this is a big but, it is not without some serious challenges. Before we wrap this up, it is so important to understand the risks involved for anyone looking to operate or invest in this space.
Yeah, this market is definitely not for the faint of heart. Prices can be incredibly volatile, swinging like crazy with the same geopolitical tensions we've been talking about. On top of that, just because the final product goes into a green car, that doesn't erase the very real environmental costs of getting these metals out of the ground.
That brings intense regulatory scrutiny, so companies have to navigate this complex, shifting web of rules, from environmental laws to big strategic policies.
So, what's the big takeaway here? Well, the Western companies we've looked at really fall into two main groups. You have your leading plays, that's MP Materials and Linus, which are a bit less risky because they have these strong government and industry partners. And then you have the more speculative plays, like rare element resources or energy fuels. The risk there is definitely higher, but so is the potential reward if they can succeed in capturing a piece of this critical market.
And that really leaves us with a final big question. We are just at the starting line of a global energy transition that's going to need an unbelievable amount of these materials. So as that demand skyrockets, is this quiet competition for critical metals going to become one of the defining geopolitical and economic races of the 21st century? Thanks for joining this explainer.